So we are here today with a friend of mine, Boris van der Haan, if I pronounce that correctly,
Right.
who's got an amazing background. Boris is a writer, a humanist, a politician, an actor, and so many other different things. And I'll let him tell us a bit more about it. Hello, Boris. How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, I'm very good to see you again.
And you. So tell
And
us,
I'm fine. Yeah.
yeah. So tell us a bit about what have you been up to at the moment.
Well, I do like you said, I do a lot of things, and that is maybe always been the basis of who I am. Actually, I did, of course, secondary school, but after that, I studied 2 years of history. But then I went to the theater academy in Maastricht, that's in the south of the Netherlands. So I was trained in 4 years as an actor, and I was on stage even. But at the same time, I was also active in a youth organization of a political party, of the Democrats CC6. And I was also a president of that. And after 4 years of acting, I also was elected. I was elected as member of parliament of the National Parliament of the Netherlands. And that I did that for 10 years. And after that, I thought, well, I don't want to be a full-time politician anymore, because I don't want to spend my whole life only to that. And I went out of it. I said, well, I don't want to go on re-election, maybe in the future again, but not now. And now I'm in several board of directors in the field of economics, of companies, but also in healthcare. I'm the president of the Dutch Disabled Society. And I'm also president of several cultural organizations. And I am on stage again. So last year, I've been in several plays, like 1984 of George Orwell, with a big orchestra and those kind of things, and in certain television series. But I also make music. So 2 years ago, I started with the first album. So if people say, what are you then? Because you're a politician for that, you're that. So, well, I'm a calico cat. I have all kind of patches on my fur. I do a lot of things, and all those kind of different things is what I am.
Very good to hear. And if I could ask you, what do you enjoy the most? You know, what do you enjoy doing the most? Would there be something?
Yeah, well, it's not just this or that, but I know that I am most enthusiastic when I can create something. So if I make a new song or a new play, but also when I, from a more political or more director kind of board of directors kind of perspective, if there's a problem and I solve it by creating an idea, you know, that I think, well, because I'm this kind of maverick kind of person, I'm always the outsider in. Some of the times I'm able to create a new idea that can solve a problem, that can bring the organization further. And if I'm asked to do that, I'm on my best, I think.
Great, great. And I know you were born in the Netherlands. Have you ever lived there of your whole life, or did you have an experience abroad?
Well, I lived always in the Netherlands. I was born in Amsterdam, raised in a small village in the Netherlands. And I studied in Maastricht in the south, and now I live in Amsterdam again for 2002. I lived here again. So I always was in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands, but I traveled a lot. I've been to London often. We met there.
Exactly.
But I've been to Brazil even, just short, but I was there, receive. And well, so I traveled a lot in Africa, in the Middle East. So I saw a lot of the world, not a specific place, but it's like, again, being a calico cat, you're everywhere. So so that has changed me also a lot, because if you see things in real, if you really can touch a problem, you can smell even a problem, you can smell poverty, for example, you can see how world politics is working on the ground, that changes you. Because that's different if you read it only from a book.
I see. And I guess you have, you learned English since you were a child. And how important was English for you in all this that you have done before?
Well, it's important because in a lot of countries, it's been spoken. Although if you're going to South America, where you're from, I think Spanish would be a better option, or Portuguese, but so not everywhere. But in Europe, I think English is the lingua franca. A lot of people speak English. I think in the northern parts of Europe, mostly like Scandinavia and the Benelux and Germany, a lot of people speak English as a second language. But I'm always a little bit ashamed that I didn't learn more languages, because I would have loved to learn Spanish or French or Italian or Chinese, because that brings you a lot further. Because if you go to Asia, for example, the big cities, you can handle yourself maybe. But if you are going to the countryside, it's better to learn also an Asian language, Chinese or something else. So, but it helped me a lot, and I think that it brings you further. My children, even, they have been for 1 year in New Zealand, and my son, he is 10 years old. He can speak fluently English now, and well, soon I will go with him to London to see some theater and to see some stand-up comedians there, because he's really into that. And he can understand it now, because it opens your world really, because you can go to other countries and you can understand everything and you can talk with people. So yeah, English for me, but also for my children, is very important.
Nice, I totally agree. Having an experience abroad changes, for example, the two of us, we can talk now, and we have met because we have the English, the English background as well. So that's quite interesting. Yeah. So basically, you speak Dutch and you speak English, yeah?
Yeah, and I speak a little bit of German, and I can understand and read German well. I cannot speak because it's a kind of difficult language, but it's near to Dutch. Like Scandinavian countries, Holland, Germany, they have Germanic languages, and there are a lot of similarities. But a lot of people in the south, for example, of the Netherlands, they speak also French as a second language. Yeah.
Cool. I remember you telling me once that there were lots of Dutch people in Brazil upon its discovery. What do you know about it?
Oh wow! Oh, that's a big question. I hope I'm good on this. Well, like I said, I was in Recife, in the north of Brazil a few years ago. I was there actually for a television program to tell something about Dutch heritage in Brazil, and I think it was in the 17th century that a lot of Dutch colonists came to Brazil. Also a lot of Jewish people who came from Portugal first went flat to the Netherlands because of religious, anti-Jewish things, and they fled to the Netherlands. And some of them also went to Brazil after that to have colonies and also to trade in sugar. There's a lot of sugar in Brazil, so they had their companies over there. There's even a Dutch Jewish synagogue in Recife, and that was one of the first on the southern hemisphere. So that was very interesting. And there's still in a park in Recife, there's still a statue of Maurits van Oranje, Maurice of Orange, Maurits van Oranje, and he was one of the family of the Dutch royal family of the House of Orange, and he was the boss there. And the interesting thing is that in the history, of course, after the Dutch came the Portuguese in Brazil, and a lot of Brazilians well, have bad memories of bad ideas about that colonization by Portugal because of the slavery and those kind of things, and they kind of idealized, is that the right word?
Yeah.
The Dutch colonists, because they were they were just only a short part of time, but they were even worse. They had also slavery, and they were not as very good as history now writes about them. But so in Recife, the Dutch heritage is really celebrated a little bit, and that was very interesting for me to see, of course. And there was even a fortress, somewhere in the neighborhood of Recife. So I visited that Fort Willem or Orange. I don't know how it was called, but it was a Dutch fortress. Yeah.
Nice.
But it was very interesting for me to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that once. That's very interesting. And how about Amsterdam? You know, I have been there once, and I met you there.
I showed you around in the morning. Yeah.
It was a very good experience, and it's very famous by its freedom, and people can, be themselves, and there are civil rights about it, and with the drug legalization as well. Can you tell us how do you like it, and what do you think is the nicest part of it?
Well, Amsterdam is a big city, but if you compare it with Sao Paulo or other big cities in Brazil, it's a small city. It's even a town, but it's called also. There are only 800,000 people in the city as such, but around it, it's like 2 million or 3 million people or something like that. But even if you compare it with Brazilian cities, it's small.
Yeah.
We in the Netherlands, we have only almost 18 million people living here, so it's a small country, like size wise, but there are a lot of people in it, so it's very densely populated, the Netherlands. And Amsterdam is called a cosmopolitan town, so it's a town. It's not very big, but everything is there. There's a lot of culture, a lot of concert halls, lots of theater. Very important, very famous ballet and opera. So there's a lot of culture, a lot of pop culture also. So I think an international crowd is really at home there. So there are a lot of international organizations that are based there because a lot of people speak English, so that's easy. And there's a lot of, if you have children, for example, you see that often that a lot of people, expats who are getting children, if they're 30 or something, they like to be in the Netherlands and even in Amsterdam because it's a city, but everything is there. There's a lot of parks, there are a lot of facilities for children. So it's in that way a very safe city and a very friendly city if you compare it with other international cities. On the other hand, it has its big city problems as well. So of course we have also poverty, not as much as in developing countries, but there is some. So there is also crime, but if you compare it with other countries, it's lower. But for example, like drugs, that in every country is that a problem, because it's not legal in the Netherlands, even marijuana or something. It's not illegal in the Netherlands, but it's kind of controlled by a system that you can buy it and you can sell it, and that there are certain rules. And if you follow those rules, you will not be prosecuted. So it's not illegal, but you will not be prosecuted if you obey certain real rules. So that's a little bit of different of legalization. And in a way it works because I think a lot of people who smoke marijuana, I don't like it really. I don't smoke normal cigarettes as well. But if you are smoking it, a lot of people buy it in those shops. So it's a little bit controlled, and also the quality of it. So that's, I think, important. On the other hand, the Netherlands is a coastal country, so there's a lot of ports. So the drugs mafia, who coming in with marijuana, but also with cocaine and with all kind of other drugs, they are winning ground. So I think that's the same problem as you have in Brazil and other parts of the world, that you don't want the mob taking over. And that's not the case in the Netherlands, but we should in certain parts and certain areas, it's important to get them down and get them smaller. And I think maybe in the end of the day, it's most important to legalize all kind of drugs and to regulate it. But until that, almost hypothetical moment that will happen, we have to get rid of a lot of the crime and the mob and those kind of things, because it can be really undermining the society. So I'm double-hearted. Is that the right word? In that. So yeah, I'm in favor of regulation of that, and to regulate also the harm that drugs can do. On the other hand, you also have to be tough on crime and to get the mob and the mafia and those kind of those kind of organizations and persons down, because they do a lot of harm to society.
I remember that when we were there together, we were walking down the street and we saw some tourists, which is very controversial as well, because it can become a problem when you have lots of tourists coming for it, and making bad things because of the possibility they have to feel free to just use it.
Yeah, that's also the problem. You don't want to be known as Amsterdam as the city where you can smoke marijuana, because that's people can give problems on the street or other things. On the other hand, it's just a small part of the freedom of the Netherlands and of Amsterdam. So a lot of tourists are really like surprised, like, wow, you can smoke weed here in a cafe and you can just buy it legally. Regulated, it's not officially legalized, and that's of course a part of it. But Amsterdam has so much other things to offer, and if you don't are in those kind of things, you can go out. There's a very liberated dancing scene and those kind of things. So that's really great about Amsterdam. And like I said, it's a cosmopolitan town. It's all bikeable. When I go into city, I'm not going by car. I go by bike, because that's much fun. It's the center of Amsterdam is 17th century built, so it's a very old part and it's very well kept. So it's really wonderful, and it's not like in some cities, like in Venice, for example, in Italy. The center is not lived by normal people anymore, and that's different in the Netherlands. So if you're in the center of the town, there are companies, of course, but also other normal people are living in those houses. So it's a very lively city. I think it's a very enjoyable part of the Netherlands. And I'm sometimes, when I'm biking around, then I really say to myself or to my love, I'm very lucky that I live here, because it's so beautiful, especially in the autumn, and there's no rain, because there's a lot of rain in the Netherlands. Then it's really nice. So I really can recommend to go there.
I know, and you are definitely very lucky to live there. A place that is very welcoming, and the people, the Dutch people, are very welcoming as well. I remember when I was there, I could see people from different backgrounds, and it looks to me it is a place where you can be yourself.
If you compare it with other countries, but we have our problems as well. We have also problems with racism and with homophobia and all those. We have that too. Although it's the government is on it, and I think in general it's a more tolerant country than other parts of the world. We are also a safer and a wealthier country than other parts of the world. That helps, of course. You always, it's not as how say that. You always have to work for an open society and for a free society and tolerant society. You cannot take it for granted to say, well, that's who we are and that's it. No, you can only be tolerant and be social if you are having the means to do that. And so I think, and I think the most different from other countries, what is not often said about the Netherlands, is that it's a very flat country. That's where the name is coming. Netherlands. It's very flat. It's built on the sea level. Like, for example, where I was born, where I was raised. I mean, it was a few meters below sea level, and with dikes, we keep the water out, and we do that for several hundred years. So that's why the Netherlands is called the Netherlands. But it's also a very nivelated, is that the right word? Very
flat,
non-hierarchically.
Yeah.
It's so, for example, I think if people from England, but also from Germany, that's very close to the Netherlands, come to live and work here, they notice that we don't look up to our too much to our authorities. And that has bad sides, because sometimes it's good to be a little bit, to look up to the law and those kind of things, but most of the people do that. But it's a very negotiating kind of society. So you are able here to say that you don't agree with your boss. And really be very blunt, very direct. So I don't agree with you, although he's the boss. And that's if you're in Germany, for example, there's a much more of a, that's different. It's not as nivelated as the Netherlands. And I think that's a charm of the Netherlands, and also of Scandinavian countries. I think that's the same a little bit there. But it's also a little bit complex, of course, because everybody thinks they're entitled to say what they want. And that gives a lot of fuss, a lot of discussion and those kind of things. But it's also, at the end of the day, it's, I think, a good thing, because that's giving also a kind of real democratic feeling, that everybody can say what they want, that if they are not agreeing with the king, or because we are a kingdom, or with our prime minister, they just can't say that. And so sometimes people from other countries find Dutch people a little bit blunt, a little bit, maybe sometimes a little bit uncivilized, because they just say what they want. But at the end of the day, you can also see the charm of that.
Definitely. Maybe that's why you guys have conquered so much. Yeah.
Conquered, you mean in the colonization? Yeah, but that's happily we are a little bit more nuanced about if that was a good thing, but like Brazil, because there was also a lot of harm being done. But the Netherlands is a strong economy. That's true. It's one of the strongest economy of the 20th country. So, and we are not a very big country, so we are very a lot of multinationals like Philips and Shell and those kind of countries, those kind of companies. So it's it's a small country, but it's a economically very strong country, I think. Yeah.
Nice. Boris, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's so enriching, a person with such a background has so much to share, and it's always very enjoyable talking to you. I'd like to thank you very much for, bringing all this information, all this knowledge to us at BringOut. It's nice to see you again, and I hope when I'm next in Europe, we can catch up.
Yeah, I hope so. Or when I'm in Brazil, of course.
Definitely, let me know.
I will, certainly.
Once again, thank you very much, and I will see you.
Bye-bye.